So let's get into it. As you can see, per usual, Coranado does a very good job of rendering this airplane. Very good job. But of course, it's Carenado, so what else is new? And we can see the flight controls move. Those are your rotorvators. You got your ailerons here. And your rotorvators move again. So, of course, they did a very good job of rendering the airplane. Today, we're actually going to fly from KSNA to KAVX. So basically, we're going from John Wayne, Orange County, California, to Catalina Island. So that's a bucket list trip for me. One of these days, I'm going to do that in hopefully my own Bonanza. So I'm really excited about this one. So let's get in. So we're going to go ahead and go into the inside the airplane. So here's the cockpit. Typical Bonanza. This has the V35B has the updated instrument panel. See, in the older ones, your radios were over here on the left. Well, when they updated the instrument panel, they put the radios where they normally are. In more updated airplanes to the right. And notice this also has a slight offset, which is characteristic of this particular aircraft. Not a whole lot of airplanes do the slight offset, so that it helps the pilot see the instruments just a little bit better. The control yoke is a throwover style control yoke. So when Coranado modeled this one, they modeled this one after a airplane that had a throwover. A lot of times too, you can get the dual yoke for the Beach Bonanza, but this particular one has a throwover. So what that really is supposed to do is allow the passenger to be a little more comfortable because they don't have the control yoke moving back and forth. So they have a little more space here. Also, you'll notice as well that this particular Beach Bonanza does not have the pilot's or the co-pilot side brakes. So the only thing the co-pilot can control is the rudder pedals. They actually don't have the brakes. Now, there were models where that was optional, where you could have the toe brakes on both sides, and not only that, you could also have the dual yoke system. This can actually be converted over to the dual yoke system, but you know, I think that's like in the real life, that's like a couple grand to do that. So with Coronado, of course, everything is not going to be able to be manipulated because that's just what Coronado does. This has more things to manipulate than a lot of their airplanes, so that's also a good one. But here, there's things like this you can't manipulate. You can't open the glove compartment, and you of course can't manipulate the fuses. But you know, still, this is still a fun airplane. This is one of my favorites. This also has some updated instrumentation. So you don't have a directional gyro here. You have a HSI. That's a more updated thing. You know, your autopilot's right here. Your fuel totalizer, so you know how much fuel you have. Your VOR ILS receiver. Your ADF. Of course, you know this is the airspeed indicator, turn coordinator. Altimeter, vertical speed indicator, of course your artificial horizon or your artificial horizon, but it's also your attitude indicator as well. Here's your manifold pressure gauge, fuel flow, prop RPM, both tanks, fuel tanks, exhaust gas temperature gauge, and instrument air. This is your suction gauge. And this is your audio panel. So if you want to hear talk on COM 1, talk on COM 2, you can also hear nav 1, nav 2. I think this is the GNS 530. I like that touch. They put the GNS 530 in here. It's your autopilot, and this is more of an old school transponder. Okay, let's see. You have a window you can open. And of course, you know, one of the things I like to do is I also like to put up the pilot's operating handbook that I'll be using today on this V35. So that will be in the comments. So you can feel free to download that. And if you decide to purchase or have already purchased this particular airplane, then you have a source of material for checklists, performance, things like that. Fuel gauge. So let's make sure a fuel gauge is on one of the two tanks. Another thing about the V35 and the Bonanza in general is you can actually get, in the real life, can get wing fuel tanks or auxiliary fuel tanks on each side, here and here. This particular one doesn't have that, but when they made this, they were available. So that would bring your fuel capacity up considerably, somewhere around 80 gallons or something like that. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. So we're going to start with our before starting engine. Seat belts positioned and locked. Obviously, we're not in a real airplane. Seat belts, horner harnesses. Put your seat belts on. Park brake set. All avionics are off. Circuit breakers are in. So here are circuit breakers, which we cannot actually manipulate. The avionics master is off, and that is right there. That is off. Circuit breakers are in. Landing gear position is down. Flaps are up. Cowl flaps are open. So let's find where our cowl flaps are. Cowl flaps, cowl flaps, cowl flaps. I can tell they are open because you can see them open from the outside. I just want to find them in here. Here they are. Closed. Open. So if you push that in and we go to the outside, here are your cowl flaps right here. They appear to be closed. Go back to the cockpit. Let them out. And now they are open. So those are the cowl flaps right there. So the cowl flaps ought to be open. The light switches are off. I always like to turn on the beacon though. Most pilots actually leave the beacon on all the time so that in the event they forget to turn off the master switch, if they look back at the airplane, they'll see the red beacon, and that will let them know that they have their master switch on. It's like leaving your car on. It runs down the battery. All right, so we have our fuel selector valve on the fuelless tank. They're both equally full. Actually, I want to double check that. The beauty of simulation is we can make changes. I don't want half a tank. I like takeoff on a full tank. So there we are. Okay, alternator, battery switches are off. And when we turn those on, the fuel tanks will come on and we'll see what we actually have. So let's go ahead and turn on our master. Master's on and we're indicating full tanks. 3 grams of light. Okay, before starting engine, Okay, battery switch is on. Auxiliary power unit connect, but we're not doing that. And we're going to head to go to starting. So we're going to say mixture full rich. Propeller set to high RPM, so it's already set to high RPM. The throttle's going to be the full. Then we're going to turn on our auxiliary fuel tank. And we're going to watch fuel flow. All right. Throttle is now going to be open to 1/4 of an inch. And we are going to and the engine is started. So we're going to bring it back down to 1,000 RPM. The checklist says you should be between 1,000 and 1,200 RPM. So now we're going to go ahead and check our oil pressure. Oil pressure's in the green. All the gauges are looking good. Actually, here looks just fine. Go ahead and do a run up real quick. All right, so brakes are set, radios are set, engine instruments are good, flight instruments are set. All right, we'll go ahead. I'm going to bring the throttle up to 1,700 RPM. All right, so we're going to check the magnetos. It's left magneto. Right magneto. Or, sorry, back to regular magneto. It's the left one here. Back up. We got a strong running engine. Let's exercise the prop. Got RPM drop. Oil pressure change. Manifold pressure change. All right. It's going to bring it back to 1,000 RPM. And we're going to check our flight controls, make sure they work. We're going to do the box. So one thing we like to do is actually call the box to check the flight controls. So we'll come out, left, forward, right, out. All right, so flight controls are checked for movement. Doors, of course, close and lock. Make sure it's full rich. And now we want to go ahead and ask for our taxi clearance to, looks like they're using runway 20. So we're going to go ahead and try to get that. We're We're actually going to depart out to the west.
John Wayne ground Beechcraft 701 Tango Delta ready to taxi departure to the west with Zulu.
Beechcraft 701 Tango Delta taxi to and hold short of runway 20 right using taxiway Bravo Lima Kilo Lima. Contact tower on 119.9 when ready.
Taxi to and hold short runway 20 right via taxiway Bravo Lima Kilo Lima Beechcraft 1 Tango Delta.
Okay, so here's the thing. None of those taxiways are actually correct. If you use an actual flight, what they call electronic flight bag, where I'm using Garmin Pilot. So none of those taxiways are right. So what I'm going to do is actually follow the taxiways that are on a Garmin flight, in my Garmin flight bag or Garmin Pilot. And it's going to get me to the runway that I need to get to, of course, but their taxiways are not going to actually match. So let's go ahead and relieve our, let's go ahead and cancel that out now. And all right. Look at the mountains in the background. All right, let's go ahead and set our trim. Make sure it's set. So it says that the ailerons are neutral, of course, and the elevator should be set to 0 degrees or 3 degrees nose up if both front seats are occupied. Well, according to the weight and balance, it is, but if you look next to me, of course, it's not. We have to look on the outside, so want to be set there. Climb power is going to be full throttle. We're going to get a positive rate of climb. We're going to retract our gear, but then we're going to back off our power at back down to about 25 inches of manifold pressure and 2,500 RPM. And that's our cruise climb. We're going to climb up to about 4,500 today.
John Wayne Tower Beechcraft 701 Tango Delta ready for west departure at runway 20 right.
Beechcraft 701 Tango Delta altimeter 29.88 wind 198 at 8. West departure approved. Cleared for takeoff runway 20 right.
Cleared for takeoff runway 20 right Beechcraft 1 Tango Delta.
Make Make sure nobody's on final. Okay, we have a positive rate of climb. And we're not going to put the gear up until we are out of usable runway. Okay, we're now out of usable runway. Gear goes up.
Beechcraft 1 Tango Delta, continue for west departure.
The one thing I can say about this particular airplane, it flies really nice.
Beechcraft 1 Tango Delta, did you copy? Beechcraft 1 Tango Delta, leaving my airspace frequency change approved.
John Wayne Tower, Beechcraft 701 Tango, Delta frequency change.
Okay, I'm actually not going to call flight following for this. We're just going to go straight VFR to Catalina Island. And we're going to go to our cruise climb at 25 and 25. So let's back our... Now, interesting, I also bought the Catalina Island scenery, so we're going to get a chance to take a look at that once we get there. Let's level off at 4,500 and stay level. And you can see the California coast. This is what it looks like from the outside. So I've got the autopilot set, and we are just cruising along. 4,700 or so. So I'm just moving my heading bug, so if I decide to put it in heading mode, there we go. One thing I don't like about this track IR, it's hard to move, sometimes it's hard to manipulate switches. Alright, so we're almost there. I'm going to go into, see if I can't get ATIS real quick.
Kilo Alpha Victor X-ray automated weather observation 2000 Zulu. Wind 258 at tree. Visibility 10. Sky conditions few clouds at 1,700 feet. Temperature 2 tree C. Dew point 10 C. Altimeter 29904.
So we're going to do a pretty long final on runway 22. So I'm lining up for that now. There's no sense in doing a whole bunch of stuff, and I can go straight in, especially if there's no traffic. It's right there. Let's go ahead and announce.
Kilo Alpha Victor X-ray traffic Beechcraft 701 Tango Delta is on final runway 22 to land.
All right, before landing checklist. Seatbelts, harnesses fastened. Backs are upright. Tanks are on the fullest tank. Well, nearly full. We didn't go that far. Cowl flaps is required. We'll go ahead and left them open. Mixture is going to be full rich. And we're going to need to slow this bird down. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the autopilot. I'm going to bring down the power a little bit. I'm also going to advance my props forward. Okay, maximum gear extension speed is 150 knots. So we'll go ahead and put our gear down. First notch of flaps. Drop the next notch of flaps. Smoothly apply the brakes. We'll get off the next taxiway. You can see all kind of cool stuff over here. And this is the Catalina Island scenery. Got a helicopter over here. So this is what it looks like. That's really cool. All right, everybody, now's our trip to Catalina Island and the Beach Bonanza V35 by Coranado. Like I said, this is one of my favorite airplanes, and I fly it a lot. I really enjoy this airplane, so I highly recommend it, just because I just really like V35s mostly. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this thing down. Mixture. Avionics, master. Okay, until next time, If you like this content, feel free to subscribe to the channel.